Stay hungry, stay foolish.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
I have a dream. Will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Hey there, listener. Thanks for stopping by. Before we get the podcast started today, I just wanted to tell you about my Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the podcast and donating some money, all you got to do is go to patreon.com/KIPPOD. And there's 3 separate tiers there where you can get exclusive content, ad-free content, and you can even suggest questions for me to ask future guests on the podcast. So guys, make sure to check out my Patreon. Also, make sure to share this podcast on your social media accounts, link it to Spotify, review it on Apple. I would very much appreciate that. So thanks guys, and enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to the Knowledge is Power podcast. This is Max Willett, your host, and today my first real official guest is Kurt Arrington. So take it away, Kurt.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I feel privileged to be your first official guest, so I can't thank you enough for that.
Yeah.
Very excited to be here and to have a chat with you.
Cool. Thanks for coming. So Kurt owns a company called Something Fishy out of Warwick, and I met Kurt in high school. We didn't go to high school together, but there was a incubator class essentially, and it was just Shark Tank, but in a high school setting, and he was our group mentor. They had a bunch of different local business entrepreneurs come into the class and mentor different groups, and I was lucky enough to get him. So, Kurt, why don't you tell us a little bit about your current state of your business, what do you do, and everything along those lines?
Sure, awesome. But just a little bit of an understatement on the incubator.
Oh, yeah.
I am the lucky one that got to meet Max. It's really exciting and fun to see a student in high school that did what you did and has gotten to where you are today. And I think one of the biggest rewards any mentor can ask for is to actually see a mentee that executes and actually accomplishes great things. And honestly, we're not that far from when you left high school or when you were in that incubator program, and you have achieved great things. And here we are today doing another cool venture with you. So I'm excited about that.
Oh, thank you.
As far as our business, Something Fishy, thanks for the introduction. Something Fishy designs, installs, and provides managed care for aquariums in Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. The aquariums that we design are primarily focused on homeowners looking to enhance the experience within their home, kind of build the centerpiece, the best piece of artwork you could ever put in your home. And then a lot of our market is also in healthcare. In healthcare, we really help provide a perfect healing environment, whether you're a hospital, a senior living organization, or just even my dentist office who's a client. Having an aquarium in their environment helps really provide the experience that your patients are going to be looking for. And then today, and particularly with offices having the rebound, bringing their teams back in, we're really looking at team player wellness and the environment that you create around having a well-being or having well-being in your commercial or corporate office space. And aquariums are a huge impact to employee wellness and bringing your team together. So that's, and I guess from a product standpoint, we don't only do the design, but as I mentioned earlier, we also service the aquariums. So they're virtually maintenance free. So our team goes in on a regular basis, which is why our focus is Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Massachusetts, to take care of the exhibits that we build for our clients.
Okay, very cool. And basically, I guess a cool way to sum it up is you do what the fish tank guys do on Animal Planet, but better.
Very well.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they're not around anymore, so enough said, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're no longer around.
They the whole place went out of business?
Yes. So
really?
And it goes to show your business principles have to be true, your values have to be true to be a sustainable organization.
Okay.
And what you saw there was a cool business that had values that aren't sustainable.
Yeah.
And TV can prop you up for a while, but it's not a forever company.
Okay. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about that, those values that you mentioned later on. But but why don't you tell us a little bit about, your background and why you started the business, when you started the business, so a little bit about your story and how it got started.
Sure. It kind of goes back to when I was 8 years old. My parents bought me a goldfish for Christmas. Mm-hmm. That turned into me jumping full into the hobby of aquarium keeping. At the age of 15, I had 4 aquariums in my parents' home. At the age of 15, I was also thinking about how I'd save enough money to have my first car at the age of 16. So I started cleaning. I thought, why don't I clean aquariums for people? So I went to my dentist in Westerly, which was a few miles from my home, and asked if I could clean their aquarium. And sure enough, they allowed me to do that. So once a month, I cleaned that aquarium there. The practice has since been sold, but they're now on their new location and 4th aquarium, a custom aquarium in a wall, really, really awesome tank. That was my first client 25 or so years ago, actually more than that, pushing 30 years ago. And so I was 15 years old. My parents literally would drop me off at that account once a month. I got my driver's license, and then I started selling aquariums. If you didn't have one, I would sell you one. If you had one, I'd solicit the service for it. And by the time I was 17, which is about my senior year in high school, I made $50,000 cleaning aquariums.
Wow.
So that was the beginnings and how I got started.
Yeah, that's crazy, especially do it in high school. That's a little bit more than I've done out of high school, but I'm trying. And what was your biggest inspiration behind starting your own company? Because a lot of people have a lot of different reasons, and unfortunately in some cases it's for the money, but I definitely think that's not in your case, because look at the work you've done and what you've built. People who build things purely out of money is it's a lot. A perfect example of that is Jordan Belfort and the whole Wolf of Wall Street thing. That there was no passion in that. The only passion was money, and a lot of businesses fail in that case. So I sort of rambled on there, but
no, you're right though. You got to find your passion first,
yeah.
and the wealth will follow. And wealth is different for different people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wealth, having all the money in the world and not being happy and fulfilled, is not wealthy.
Exactly.
And if you really find what you love doing, people are going to want what you have. I don't care if you dig holes for a living, but you're passionate about it. People are going to want you to dig their holes because they want to be part of your passion, and you'll be the wealthiest hole digger ever.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. As far as I think your question was really when did I find the passion around the business itself? So I was always passionate about fish.
Yeah.
That doesn't make me a good business person, right?
Yeah.
And what was really important was to realize that it's funny because I met you when you were 16, 17 years old.
Yep.
And there's an incubator program at Jarrow High School. There's business, everywhere you look today, entrepreneurship is like a hot thing. Well, it wasn't like that when I was 15, 16. I didn't actually even tell people I had a business. It wasn't like something to be proud of. If anything, it was what you did if you couldn't get a job, right? And at 15, 16 years old, when I was cleaning fish tanks, I looked at myself as a fish tank cleaner. So my peers, my friends in school, I didn't talk about that. And then I think I was 17 years old, kind of going into that high school year. Probably a lot of my friends didn't know what I was doing, cleaning fish tanks. And it was my uncle, actually, who was in marketing for GE and an executive there. And he said, man, you have something that you could be really big. You could go national with this. And that's when I realized that I didn't just clean fish tanks. I owned a business cleaning fish tanks. And even though I was an employee of one, a company of one, I realized that was the turning point, is that I knew I had a legitimate business at that point. And I also thought back, to my childhood, from my paper route to the lemonade stand to, any way I could think of kind of earning extra money in lawn service. And I always tried to make a business of it. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was an entrepreneur. So, and the word entrepreneur wasn't popular. It wasn't in demand. It wasn't the cool thing. And that's when it, I was 17 years old, and I realized, heck, this is something that I love doing, and I love the business aspect of it. And I was actually planning to go to college for criminal justice. Okay. So that moment at 17 is when I realized I'm not going for criminal justice. I'm going for business.
Yeah.
And I own a business, and entrepreneurship is what I want to do. What's interesting about it, and one thing I've learned and share with a lot of people, and probably talk to you about this too, is that if you are passionate about a hobby like aquariums, it doesn't mean you should make a business out of it. If you are passionate about something and you're passionate about entrepreneurship and business, that's a great combination, because there's a lot of great electricians and great bakers that aren't going to be great business owners owning an electrical company or owning a bakery.
Yeah.
So you really have to be passionate about both sides of that. And today, I love our product. The passion is still there and is on fire as ever. And certainly the dynamics of growing a company, I'm just on fire about it. Love it.
Yeah. Well, that actually reminds me of a book I read or started reading. A lot of people in BNI recommended it to me. And the name of the book, unfortunately, is escaping my mind because it's been a few months since I've read it. But they talked about, there's the entrepreneur, the technician, and then there was one other thing. And they were talking about how a lot of times the technician starts a business because they know how to do everything. And then they get to the point where they started doing what they loved, and then it turned into work. And I feel like a lot of times that happens. I've seen it actually for somebody that I'm working for. They never necessarily loved to do what they did, but they preferred it over other things, and now they dread it every day because they've been doing it for 25 years, and it hurts their knees, hurts his back, and it's just something like that. And it's just kind of weird to see somebody go from when they were younger talk about how much how lucky they are and how much they love to do what they do, and then now they just complain about it, and it just sucks to see that.
Yeah. So I think the book you're referencing might be The E-Myth by
Michael
Gerber.
Yes.
It's a great book. It boils it down as simple as it could be,
Yeah.
right? And there's so much truth to that. So that's a book I probably read 20 years ago or more, and I'm glad that you read it too.
Yeah.
The interesting thing with a passion is, for sure, there's a couple things that happen to business people. One, people that aren't business people get into business for the wrong reasons. So again, I'll just use the electrician, and I think Michael Gerber did it in his book. The electrician that is making good money and then sees his boss seemingly make more money than him because he's billing X dollars more an hour than the electrician's getting paid. The electrician goes out and starts his business and quickly realizes that even though his boss was billing more, his boss was probably making less than the electrician, right?
Yeah.
But in addition to that, you have to you're not just doing electrical work, you're running a business. And that can be daunting. And if you're not up for it, that's going to drain you because you're at home at night figuring out how to create an invoice or to put your marketing campaign together, and you're an electrician, and that's not where your passion is. And you're going to get tired, worn out, and that, and if that just, that you get into a rut. So business isn't for everybody, but let me tell you, for the people it's for, it's a fun game.
Yeah, definitely. So you graduated high school, and you're really starting to go with your business. You went to college, right, for business, right?
Business administration.
Okay. And I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about that.
Sure.
And your journey through college and realizing, what the value of that degree was going to be for what you were doing, or something along those lines.
Absolutely. Yeah, so actually in high school, I had gotten all my core curriculum courses out of the way as a junior and earlier on. So as a senior, I only had to take English and gym. So I actually went to my guidance counselor and said, hey, can I get out of school early to run my business? And that's for non-college orientated students. You're going to college. Go over and talk to the career and tech guidance counselor over there. So he says, well, the program you're talking about is only for non-college bound students and people that are going to work next year. I'm like, that's not fair. So he's like, you can't do it. So then I went to the principal, and they said, okay, you can do it. And that was in 97. So anyway, that's how I was able to grow the business while I was still in high school that senior year. So then when I went into college, I went for business administration and 4-year program. 2 years into it, probably about 18 months into it, I was getting accounts like Walmart, Petco, and a couple other. Red Lobster was one of them.
Wow.
And we were getting these accounts because they were commercial accounts that a manufacturer had a national account with, and they were sending us out for the regional service. And because of the growth and the work we were doing, I needed to hire a couple of people full-time, and at the time I was only working with part-time team players. So I took the winter semester and the summer semester to develop training, hire a couple people, and then go back to school. And I never went back to school, so I got the 2 years in, and that was the end of my my college career, if you will.
Yeah, because I had a friend tell me, because I don't know, I've been contemplating school and the value of it and everything like that. But I mean, especially having your own business, going to school, and as I'm working, laying down hardwood floors. That's what I did all day today. School definitely is like the third thing for me right now, which it shouldn't be, but like it's just a weird feeling, like, because in high school it was all about school and then baseball, but now it's sort of like, it's just weird because I'm going for engineering, and I'm just gonna completely open up about this, but I don't know. I've been contemplating about taking a year off. Should I just switch to business because right now I'm in for mechanical engineering, and let's be honest, business is easier than engineering to graduate from college. I'm not knocking, but like it's just like calculus is hard. Like it's hard and it's very time consuming, and I feel like, if I wasn't doing this, I could be working on my website, I could be emailing people, I could be getting instantaneous results, which I guess is sort of wrong, because patience is a virtue. But I've also had some recent experiences that make me just want to do things now, because you don't know, time is limited. Patience is a virtue, but time is limited. So it's just like, I don't know what to do, sort of thing.
You ask great questions, and you're thinking like most college students would that have started their own business, right? And certainly there's many college dropouts that have built wildly successful companies. I can speak a little bit about my experience. One of the things that I think you bring up is you're in school for engineering, and you certainly have an engineering mind. But from my conversations with you and the time that we've had together, you are passionate about engineering, but you're even more passionate about business. Like you have something, whether it's the business you're in today or the business that you'll create tomorrow, you are going to take something and get to the next level and do really amazing things in your life. And you've already started that. So
thanks.
And that may be around engineering, it may not. It's hard. Only because you're in your shoes, but it may be that engineering isn't the right platform at school, but you would be really passionate about the school of business. Mm-hmm. So that's something to think about as we're coming into spring. Maybe this is a good time to look at that, because I do think that college is really important. And if you look at even my career and the success that I've had, I feel I'd be further along had I stayed in school. When I was in school, it felt like school was slowing me down from growing my business. But that was being short-sighted. And what I learned years later was that school would have taught me and connected me with people, alumni, and built mentoring relationships that would have propelled me further along. So maybe in my 20s, at 22, 23, I wouldn't have had a very successful business. By the numbers, maybe I still would have had a business. But instead, I would have been in school focusing on that. But then at 25, 27, 30 years old, I would have been further along than where I was. So I think you really have to assess school's going to teach you a lot of things that I learned the hard way. And I had to go through failures that would have been prevented if I stayed in school. So I think it's something to think about and just consider what discipline is right for you versus engineering versus business. But no matter what, Max, there's one thing I know, and that is whatever you do, you'll figure it out.
Well, thanks. So, I mean, essentially what you're saying is it's not what you learn in school, it's who you meet from school.
Exactly.
Okay. So, because it's one of those things, and I thought was a great example. I went golfing with somebody over the weekend, and I'm going to keep this person nameless, but it was a friend of a friend's, and he's going to school for marketing. And I'm like, oh, I'd love to talk to you a little bit about it. I have my own business, and I want to know what the college is, what URI is telling you. And I'm like, so I started talking about, like Google SEOs and branding and stuff like that. And he was like, what's Google SEO? Like, what is that? And I'm just like, it kind of made me realize,
Sure.
like, really? Like, and he's out of state, so he's paying like 25 grand a year. And like, I learned that, like, when you put me in contact with Kai, who's the marketing person, for obviously you guys don't know who that is, but like that was one of the first things he taught me was Google SEO. Like he said, it was one of the most important things in a modern business, especially a type of business like me who's virtually all online. And this college student had no clue what it was, and I started talking to him a little bit about marketing, and he honestly didn't really know anything. And I feel like a lot of kids who go to college, it's all about partying and stuff
Sure.
like that. And I definitely think that he fell victim to that.
Well, here, I want to just touch on something that you talked about with what going to school, what it's all about.
Yeah.
And is meeting people is definitely
yeah.
one of them. But the other thing is that, and this is definitely in college, but it's also in life in general. College is going to give to you what you take from it.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of students that go through college and just they really don't learn that much,
Yeah.
and they just get by, and that's fine, and they can go on and do wonderful things, I'm sure. But then there's also students that realize what is really being offered to them, and they take, and that's what it's there for. Professors, mentors, they want you to take that. It's just that only a very few students actually do that, and they just go through the motions, and they don't do what's really required to get the best education.
Mm-hmm.
And that best education is gonna come through really grasping the areas that are of most interest and of what might be most important to you. And that's probably in the area of entrepreneurship and business leadership and business management. And those are the things that you really want to grasp on. So, and it's the same thing in life. There's nothing that has led to my success more than me just being curious. And I didn't have any opportunities that the guy right next to me didn't have. The difference is I just kept asking and looking. And, I have this quote that I stole from somebody else called, opportunities are everywhere. The problem is they're dressed up in work clothes. So it takes work to uncover them.
Yeah.
It takes effort. And I'm willing to put that effort in. Most people aren't. Same thing in college. It takes effort to get the best education out of college and to make that experience propel you in your life forward faster than anyone else. The average college student is not propelled that much further in life with college. It's not the college, it's the student. The right student will be propelled tremendously by a 4-year or greater degree. And you are that right student.
Okay. Wow. Okay. That's pretty interesting. So, I mean, it's just and it's tough for me because while that's all great stuff, I mean, the price tag like really sets me back, and I tell myself, I'm gonna be successful enough where that won't be an issue, but it's still like I look at, and I'm in barely any debt compared to other people, but like I still look at that number and I'm like, I have to pay that, and I have no money, and it's like, so that's one of the biggest another thing that really throws me back, especially like I have friends that are paying a lot more than I am for college, and and it's sort of weird. I think of things differently than they do. Like they go to college thinking they're just gonna go work for somebody, and that's how they're gonna make their way. Like that would just annoy me. Like, why would you want to, like, I know this is sort of an old term when I was like YOLO, like you only live once. Like, do you really want to spend it working for somebody else, dreading going to work every day, and just not loving life every second, that you're lucky enough to be here? And it's like, I don't know, like people, I guess that's what they're happy doing. And if that's what they're happy doing, it's what it's what it is. And I also look at success isn't necessarily money, and a lot of people mix that up, because I know plenty of people who have no money and are very happy with their lives. Like I have family all over the country, and
they're not wealthy people, but they're wealthy in family, and that's something that I've been, trying to tell myself and everything like that. Like, if you have success is not money, and I know that's kind of veering off course here, but success is finding happiness in what you want to do, and this is what I want to do. Run my own business. So I don't know. It just but it was also weird because, again, I was talking to that person, and I haven't really talked to a real college student since then. I've talked to people that are sort of going to college, and I have a couple friends that, because it's all online, aren't really going. They're only taking a few classes, but this kid is fully enrolled in marketing, and he's just like, yeah, I'm just going to, go work in sales or something like that. Like, no drive to do anything bigger than that. That's just what he wants to do. And it's just weird to me. I don't know. Like,
so there's a couple things in everything that you said.
Yeah.
One is the cost of college. I think the cost of college, particularly being in-state and some of the programs that, particularly here in Rhode Island, like with in-state student going to URI, for example, listen, it's expensive, especially when you're just starting out. But when you turn 30 and you're making considerably more money because you did go to college, it'll look like short money at that point. So it's not right for everyone. You've got to kind of figure out what's best for you. The other thing is, thank God that not everybody's motivated the same way, because all the entrepreneurs out there wouldn't have any team players on their team, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that you look at, and entrepreneurship's not right for everybody. Actually, it's not right for the majority of people. There are a lot of people, and as you touched on, that are happy going and like I have a team of marine biologists. They're brilliant people. They're great. We even teach them business 101 kind of through what we call the great game of business, so they have an understanding of it. And I think sometimes that understanding is enough to let them know that how happy they are being a biologist and not running a business, right? Mm-hmm. And that's good, because that's what's right for them. In your reference to your friend that's in marketing, in today's world at 18, 19, 20 years old, a lot of people don't have it figured out. I think as far as where they're going to be in the next 5 years, or even after college, or even what they want to do, college has so much to offer, particularly around someone that does have some legitimate area of understanding of what they want to do, or reasonable area, I guess. So that could be business, it could be engineering, it could be literacy. You want to at least have be in the right channel, right? Because that will help you figure out where you want to go. And marketing in business is a good generalized degree, because that can take you so far. I don't know if college teaches you what you want to do when you get out of college.
Yeah.
It gives you some resources so you can then figure it out. To touch on that aspect that you talked about with someone not knowing what they want, I think you figured it out. You know where you're going to be. And I did too when I was your age. That's not that we're fortunate. That's not common.
Of course. Yeah.
But when the marketing person does graduate college, the best thing is, even if it's free, for them to go look at other companies and intern for, I don't care if it's a day, a shadow day. Like, I tell this to people all the time, and very few people do it. If you think you're interested in something, go shadow someone already doing it, someone that's successful in that, and see if you really like that. If you think you like it, take the job. If 6 months later you hate it, move on, do something else. Yeah. The only way you're really going to find what you like doing is if you're actually doing it. And okay. College will help you in that direction.
Okay, cool. Alrighty, guys. So thanks for listening so far, but we're going to take a quick break. So it's going to be instantaneous for you, but we'll be right back. Alrighty, guys. So we're back from our quick break. So earlier we talked about the fish tank company from Animal Planet called ATM, and you mentioned about some values in that company that sort of led to its demise. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. Well, I know a little bit about the company, obviously, from being in the industry, and fun guys. I actually spent a day with them before they went into the whole TV Animal Planet episodes. this was, they are a type of company that we actually would buy products from. So they manufacture custom tanks where we do the assembly. So we would actually buy from them. Spent a day with them. Great guys, kind of a cool operation, but a little bit all over the place. And then the TV. So we actually didn't end up doing any buying from them. We were actually concerned that might not be a good business decision. And then, the TV show happened, and they had a lot of great success from that. They did a great job with the show. The drama in it was awesome. Mm-hmm. It made for good TV. And to give you a little bit of a flavor of values, I guess might be a really a good way of putting it. Animal Planet had such success with the show that they took their production company and said, hey, go find another show within this industry that we can create. Find another company in this industry. And they actually found 20 companies in and around aquarium stores or service companies like ours, interviewed them for a potential show. We were within the 20, narrowed down to the top 4, and then the production company came out and spent an entire day with us. And we had a great time, made a what's called a sizzle. It's a 7-minute video made by the production company that will go to Animal Planet's executives to determine if there can be another show. Well, when the existing show found out about this, they basically told Animal Planet, if you do another show, we'll walk, meaning you're going to lose our talent. So it's kind of a more shows only will bring good to the hobby and elevate everybody. A rising tide raises all ships. And that wasn't their mindset. Likewise, I had clients that did business with them, and a lot of those relationships just didn't end well. And I think it's just the way that you conduct business is really important from a value standpoint. And I think values done wrong and can be the demise of a business. And listen, I don't know exactly what went wrong and why the business is pretty much non-existent today. But I have a really good feeling that values would have kept them afloat if they were the right values.
So any idea of what values in particular that sort of led to that? So like, I don't know if you want to theorize or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't want to, I don't know. I don't want to speak about something that I'm not, sure about. I will say that I think values in companies have to be about, very, very high ethics. If you're going to look to build relationships with clients, you have to put them first ahead of yourself. And I'm not sure that was happening. But I know that that's something that's extremely important. You have to do what is best for others ahead of yourself all the time. And when you do that, people will want to work with you. When you do what's right, even if no one's looking, that's the way you're going to build success and happiness and fulfillment. I remember, and I teach our team now. There's things that decisions my company and my team make, and I'm not even involved in it. And I always tell them, if they ever consult with me, well, if the client was standing right by your side, looking at the way you're billing them, how would you do it? And like this way, then that's how you do it.
Yeah.
So you always do what's right. We've made mistakes before, and we call it out and say, hey, we made this mistake, and so we're making it right, even though you would never know we made the mistake. And that's just who we are as a company. And I think that's what it takes to build a good brand, good loyalty, and good relationships with your team, with your clients. So those kind of values are important. And a lot of companies don't know what their values are, but if you don't know what they are, you don't share them with your team. You have values, you just have no control over them. So our values at Something Fishy are fish: fun, irresistible, simple, and honest. And those are things that we truly thrive and live on every day, including looking at fun. We literally went through an exercise and said, how do you make a client smile at every touch point? One of those touch points is when they come home at the end of the day and we've already serviced their aquarium. Well, our aquariums always look clean, and so when we're servicing it, sometimes you might not even know we're there. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things we could leave our mark and make them smile when they come home? And we actually put concepts to that work to this day. We said, how do you, funny story, how do you make the person paying our invoice that doesn't even know who we are in the back accounting office smile? And so we took
corny fish dad jokes.
Yeah.
In the emails.
Exactly. Corny fish jokes for sure. And a funny story, when it started, we actually put a Swedish fish candy in the envelope.
Hey there. Sorry to interrupt the episode, but I just want to take this chance to tell you to share the podcast on your social media platforms. Link it on your Instagram story. Follow Knowledge is Power _Rhode Island on Instagram. And leave a review on Apple Podcast if you're listening on that platform. So, thanks for listening, guys, and enjoy the rest of the episode.
Okay.
And a couple months later, we realized that all this is back when most of our invoicing was paper, and when it went through the mail machine, it would unwrap the individual candy inside. So the accountants or bookkeepers were opening something with an unwrapped Swedish fish and an empty wrapper stuck to their invoice. So it's kind of funny, I guess, but we had to stop doing that.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of those little touches that go a long way, especially in that sort of business where customer service is everything. But I also remembered when you were talking about, Something Fishy and the services that you guys offer, and you talked about like nursing homes and stuff like that. I just thought that, because in high school, me and my partners, we did the personal observatory, if you remember.
Sure.
So basically, it was an automated telescope that would turn and go up and down to the star correlations and different, the moon or like Mars or something like that. But it was a lot more user-friendly. Like, those already exist, but they have like a remote that you'd see from a 1980s TV. Like, it's very poor. I mean, the quality is great, but they cost a lot of money, and you have to be trained on how to use it, essentially. And you had mentioned, that it might be a good idea to have it in a nursing home, and I feel like there's a lot of businesses, that revolve around that could benefit from that. I'm not saying nursing homes are, you should take advantage of them, but like, it's just cool to see, how, one sort of business model could be applied to another business from a different perspective, I guess. But that was just a quick thought I had. But because obviously a telescope, maybe like live streaming the star correlations on a TV, and it's just really cool because I'll find myself just like, at night, I'll let the dog out and I'll walk outside and I'll look and I'm just like, that's awesome.
Amazing, right?
So yeah, but I don't know. That was just a quick thought I had. So I just have another question for you. So for people that are starting their own business, and are a little bit short on change, is it a good idea for somebody to borrow money from a bank or a family member? But before you answer it, I just want to say, like, from family experience and having family members that have done that, I don't think that's a great idea. Just speaking from, me, not knowing anything, but I just wanted to get your opinion on that. I guess borrowing from a bank.
Sure. Unfortunately, most businesses that are at startup are not bankable.
Yeah.
So a lot of times that's the cause for individuals that are starting businesses to go elsewhere and find alternative lending sources, which oftentimes are family and friends. Today you have crowdfunding, which makes it a little simpler. So I'll back up. I think one of the questions you had is really, should you borrow money first, right?
Yeah.
And then second, where would you get it from? As far as should you borrow money, I think it depends on what the risk is that you want to take. So if you look at my business, when I started out, I was 15. I didn't even think about borrowing money. I just needed a bucket and a hose, which I already had. So I was able to start doing that. And borrowing money at that point for me wouldn't have made sense because my objectives were to earn enough money in high school, so I didn't have to work in college. So I wanted to make 50, 60 grand in high school, and then I wouldn't work in college. So for that, I wouldn't borrow money. Let's say I'm getting out of college and I'm going to start a business. I'm 20 something years old and I need to borrow money. I would say that I'm going to young age, and I'm very open to risk, because if I lose it all, I can just start over. If I'm 50, I might not have as much risk, because I might have college to worry about for my own kids, or I might have saved money that I don't want to risk like I would when I'm 20. So it really depends. Financing a business or borrowing money really depends on the situation that you're in personally, and where your business is at. However, I'm huge at, you figure things out the less you have. You become, it's not about resources, but resourcefulness. Mm-hmm. And our team in general has been very resourceful with what we're doing. Like when we moved into the building that we're in now first look at the first office, just very much like your story. I moved from my parents' home, my bedroom office, to a 150 square foot office. And then in that same building, we grew to 2,000 square feet, one step at a time as I could afford it. I never borrowed any money. And then we moved from that building and opened up a retail store. And that was the first time I borrowed money. And I borrowed it from my family. My parents, I was fortunate that they were able to lend it to me, and I was able to make that happen. And then it wasn't till years later where we actually were very bankable, and we're growing. And as a business grows, sometimes you need finances or funding to just support growth with what you're doing with leasing, like in our case, leasing aquariums, and growing accounts receivable, and just growing your organization, hiring more people. So we became bankable, but it was years and years into the business when we were more solvent on our own. So I've gone through all from starting a business with nothing, to borrowing from my family, to borrowing from a bank. So they're all right. It depends on which time and where you're at. One thing that I caution people about, though, is borrowing. When you do borrow money, or you're able to borrow money, is still make sure you're resourceful. Like when we renovated one of our locations, like we still did it intelligently. Like said you were laying floors today, that I did that in one of our offices. Yeah. And it's like, that may not, you got to be careful. Sometimes you laying floors to save a few bucks is costing you more money because you're not out selling. So, but you do what's right for the time in your life in which you're at. Okay. Right. So,
well, that's actually pretty interesting. You say, the less you have, the more resourceful you are, and the more thought out, you spend your money. And I guess it's so weird, because you can relate that back to Harbor Flooring, because we've worked for people that are out in Block Island, and they just say, do my floor. If I don't like it, tear it up, do another one. Whereas the people that are over here and don't have nearly as much money are like, okay, I need to search, I need to do research, I need to, make sure I plan everything out correctly, because they have less money, and it's just funny how that kind of relates.
Over here, they want to take what's being pulled out of Block Island and use that.
Exactly, because some of the places out there are insane. Well, and by the way, we live in southern Rhode Island, and there's an island off the coast. It's a tourist, quote unquote, attraction. There's really not much to do there other than go to old stores and go on the beach.
And mudslides.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to learn about that someday.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. It's just, I've been working for this Harbor Flooring guy, and actually the first week we went out there and did floors, and it was it's just a weird place, because there's only that one main road that's paved, and then everything else you need a 4x4 to get to. And it's like these people have all this money, and then you go to their house and it's down a dirt road, and then it turns out to be some $10 million mansion. It's
beautiful place.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I guess something else I'd like to touch on. Oh, actually, before I go to that, so my business, I'm not going to share exact numbers, but I can afford an office. I can afford minimal marketing. I have the capabilities to do certain things that have to do with additive manufacturing and 3D printing and the connections in the local industry. Do you think that at where I am, or any business that's at my particular point, if a bank said, let's think best case scenario, here's $10,000, 0% interest, is it a good idea to get that loan?
Loaded question.
Yeah.
So the 0% interest is really appealing, because if someone's going to give me 0% interest, I'd rather have the money in my bank and have that as a cushion if there's no interest. The challenge is that you're going to end up spending it. It's what you're going to spend it on, right? So if you're going to borrow $10,000, it needs to be so that you're going to make 20 or 30 back.
Okay.
Right? And that you'll be able to leverage that. So you want to be more strategic about what you're going to use the funding for. So I'll give you an example. If you are going to, and I realize this isn't what you were suggesting, but if you are going to borrow money to move into an office, the office most likely is not going to drive revenue.
It just makes things easier, essentially.
Maybe, yeah.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if I was going to use it, it'd be for marketing.
So for marketing, marketing is a tough thing. 50% of your marketing works and 50 doesn't. You just don't know which 50 is which. Marketing obviously is an investment, and it's something that is important for your business. You could $10,000 is a lot of money at any given point. So you just got to be really careful about how you make sure that that investment's going to be worthwhile. So, for example, on marketing, today's best marketing is online, and you can spend $100 or $300 a month and have a big impact. So, if you were to see results at a lower risk investment, say you're spending $100 a month, a couple $100 a month, $500 a month, where you grow it to that and it's really working, and then you put more money slowly into it, I would say that's probably a pretty good investment. I'd hate to see a company of your size put $10,000 out there all in one basket today. It's a tough. You have so much opportunity to market your business, and there's so much opportunity in just the small Rhode Island market for you, that just knocking on doors, which is time, not money, would open enough doors for you to be able to do all the advertising you ever want and never have to borrow any money.
Okay.
So I would look at what those opportunities are first. So what's interesting is in your business career right now, you can exchange time. You have time, right? And you can use that time to make money. And where I'm at in my career, time, I don't really have any more time, right? I'm very busy. So I have to look at, what do I stop doing? What do I hire somebody to do? I cringed because I hired someone to wax my boat this week. And I'm like, I just want to do that myself. But I realized that that's 10 hours or 5 hours, whatever it is. It's a day, even though it's a Saturday. It's still a day that if I'm putting that into my business, I'm worth a lot more than what I'm going to pay for that to be done. So you really have to look at that kind of situation, and that's see what you have time today to be out there marketing your business.
Yeah, it's sort of touchy though when it comes to knocking on doors, because the person that lives across the street from here doesn't necessarily need rapid prototyping services. And it's weird because I don't know, I keep relating back to this, but when it came to hardwood floorings, I was explaining my business to him. I mean, everybody that owns a house can benefit from his service. That's not the case for me. I have to really pinpoint different people in different companies and say, all right, I mean, and the hard part is finding those people. I don't need a lot of them, but I need, maybe 10 or 15 big clients that continually send me work. Like I have one of those right now. And if I had 10 of those, like that'd be ideal. And I could still be in the same spot I am right now, in my 400 square foot office, one room sort of thing. But I guess if I were to use it, it would be for, Google SEOs and stuff like that, and Google marketing. But in talking to marketing people like Kai, it's not like you could pay all the money in the world to get your Google ad, the first one up there. But the thing that is incredibly difficult is getting somebody after they've clicked on your page to then convert that sale. having all the money in the world just to get it up there isn't even half the battle, because you can do all of that. You can spend all that money and then have a crappy website and nobody's going to buy from you.
Right.
Because it's all about first impressions. What's the quote? You only have one chance to do a good first impression or whatever. I don't know what the quote is, but that's sort of where I'm coming from. I mean, it's just an interesting, different sort of market, I guess, of, who I'm selling to and what I'm selling. So I don't know what your thoughts on that.
Yeah, every entrepreneur goes through this. If I only had more money, and no matter where you're at, you're always going to have more you're always going to want to spend more than you can afford to spend. There's always going to be more things to buy than you have the money for, always, especially in a growing business. I have never ever had the ability to just do whatever it is that we wanted as a company. We've done well. Right now, we're moving into a new building. We signed the purchase and sales.
I didn't know that.
Sales today. We put a deposit on it, and so we have 90 days due diligence. So,
wow, I didn't know that.
It's 3 times the size of our location.
Wow.
And we're moving from a lease to a building purchase.
Where is this building?
It's on Metro Center Boulevard, so a mile from our existing showroom.
Is it in like that big business part over there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know.
So
where that is.
Excited to show you.
Yeah.
But you look at so even in this building purchase, right? There's things we're gonna have to cut back on. Our list of things we want and what we really feel we need are greater than the financing and the investment we're willing to make. So you have to make concessions and do what's reasonable, right? And we're doing an investment analysis, and if we spend this, our business will grow by X, right? And that's what you really have to do at any time that you're making an investment. Your business is so young, and there's so much opportunity right here that I would just look at ways to not go into debt in order to grow your business, and be very any investment you make, be very reasonable with what that is, because where you really don't want to be. You talked about debt from college. You don't want to go through. I think you should stay in school and maybe look at the business side of that too, but you don't want to be focused on having school debt plus business debt. I'd love to see you graduate, and really, you're gonna feel free when you graduate. You have the education behind you. I don't want to also see you have that level of business debt behind you. There's plenty of time to rack that, make that kind of investment down the road.
Okay, so I also heard this strategy. I don't know. This is still on the loan thing, but you use a loan to pay the loan, and then you use it as you need it, sort of thing. So if it's 0% interest, you could get the $10,000 loan and then just use that money to pay it off, and then strategically place $200 here, $400 here, $50 here. I don't know,
So it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's not the best way to if you're going to borrow money. Here's a better example. Here's the right, if there's such a thing as a right way. Typically, what you want to do if you want to borrow $10,000, let's just say that $10,000 is going to be $200 a month to pay it off, and you want to find a reasonable amount of time, say 5 years or 3 years for a business loan. So let's just assume that's $200 a month. Well, in order for you to afford $200 a month, you need to be able to have cash flow in your business of at least 20 or 30% more than that, because you don't want to spend all your cash flow to pay off the loan. Yeah. So if your business bills $1,000 a month, just to have round numbers, and easy math for me, if your business is billing $1,000 a month, and then you have payroll and utilities and expenses, and that brings you down to $400 a month left, and then you have $200 to pay off your loan. You still have $200 left. That's a good debt to income ratio, right? And you're cash flowing positively in your business. However, if that same $1,000 scenario, before you pay your loan off, you have $100 left, but your loan note is $200, you're negative, you're going to end up being negative $100 in cash flow, and you're going to be stressed out about that. You're not going to figure out, it's going to drive debt in the wrong direction. So listen, I'm very open to risk, but you really need to be smart about it. And you want to take emotions out of it. Every entrepreneur wants to be handed, and not that it's handed if you're borrowing it, but every entrepreneur thinks, if I just had more money, I could do X, or if I just had more money, I'd be successful. I know this. I've been there. That is not as often not the answer. And most entrepreneurs that are handed money handle it wrong. They manage it wrong.
Okay. Interesting. So I guess sort of one of the last questions I wanted to ask you is, so when you started growing and you started hiring people, I guess this is for the people that are further down the road, sort of where you are, just getting down or just starting down that road of hiring employees. What is like the process? Because the only sort of experience I've had with that in my own business is trying to help out an intern. Like I talked to the engineering teacher at the Career and Technical Center in Cheraho, and he's like, oh yeah, this student would be great. And I'd get on Zoom meetings with him and teach him a little bit about CAD and 3D printing. But that's obviously nothing, compared to having an actual employee. So I don't know if you want to speak on that a little bit.
Yes. So I think for all businesses, and this is probably for people that aren't even business people, psychology is a huge aspect. I guess if I could go back to school again, I might add psychology or organizational psychology to it, because I wish I knew now what I didn't know then. Or I wish I knew then what I know now about hiring people. I did it all the wrong way. I just didn't put the time and effort into hiring the right people or investing in the right amount of training. And it took me a long time, probably more so in the last 5 to 10 years, that I've been doing it better. I don't know if I've done it right, but I've just been doing it better, and we have a stronger team. And basically what I've learned is that you hire slow and fire fast. Make sure you get the right people on the team. We use a legitimate, I went through personality profile testing, which is like a psychological test that you take that kind of dictates where you might do your best work. And we were talking about this earlier, how, why wouldn't everybody want to be a business person? And there's a lot of psychologically, it's not right for everybody. There's people that could never deal with the stress that you deal with every day. And it's just not right. They don't want to go home with that stress of how am I going to make payroll or how am I going to find the next client. They just want to come in, they want to do their job, they want to go home and plant tulips or whatever it is that they're passionate about, right? And hopefully they're passionate about their day job too, but they don't want to take that stress home with them. They're not risk takers, and that's good, because you need people to do the back end office work. So understanding that psychology helped us hire and build the right team. So I can go into a meeting right now or an interview process with somebody and know if they're going to be right for the position that we're looking pretty quickly, just because of my experience around psychological testing and understanding the way that people think. It also helps me on the sales side too. When I meet a client, I can pretty instantaneously understand the way that they want to be talked to. Some people want to be very brief. They want the facts, and they want it to be very short and to the point. Others want all the details in the world and all the specifications. And if you're selling to somebody, you need to know that up front. They're not going to tell you what they want. You've got to kind of figure that out. And because I can adapt to that situation, it helps us build better client relationships. And that's exactly the same with your employees. So hiring is something that you really want to be particular about and make sure you get the right person for the right job. And then once you have them, the way that you treat and respect those team members is huge. I firmly believe if you take care of your team will take care of your customers. And I'm going on vacation for 2 weeks, and one of my team players just before I came here, came up to the office and he was like, "So you ready for vacation?" And I was like, "I am, and I want to go, but I just don't want to leave for 2 weeks."
Yeah,
I'm like, I feel like it's so, and he's like, "Well, you don't have anything to worry about here. We got it covered." And he's right. I'm not worried about that. I just am having fun every day, so I want to be there.
Yeah.
But he is right. I'm not worried about it, and it's kind of interesting. if you hire the right team, one of the benefits will be that the team will take care of you, and you got to treat them right, and they'll take care of your customers. But think about this, Max. In my business, one of the things COVID taught me, I spent 10 days in the office, and that's probably exaggerating, in a year from March 20 to March 21, less than 10 days in the office. How is that? And my company grew. How is that possible? Because of the right team. And one of the things I learned from COVID is let them go. I don't need to be there to make sure they're doing things perfectly, right?
Yeah.
And if I am there making sure they're going to be doing things perfectly, I'm just going to mess things up. So, so it's really important that you get the team dynamics proper in your company and organization.
That's really interesting on COVID there, because it's affected a lot of different businesses negatively, in some cases positively. I mean, you've seen large businesses like Walmart and Amazon just completely explode. And seems like a lot of people have forgotten about the little guys, which is very unfortunate. But I don't know if you want to talk on a little bit how COVID has sort of, I know you mentioned that sort of a little bit, but how it sort of restructured how you run things in your business compared to before. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, or...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure. Who could have ever imagined this, right? I remember the beginning of March in 2020, a team member saying, hey, we really need to think about a plan around this COVID thing. And I was in agreement, but thought it would never happen. And we literally sat down and put a plan together, an isolation plan to keep our team separate from each other and protect our clients, and proactively reach out to our clients about what we're going to do. And so it turned into probably a half a day meeting that turned into a whole lot of execution over the next couple of days. And less than a week later, we were implementing the plan. I thought we were developing a plan that would sit on a shelf for the rest of our lives. So it changed our business overnight. And no one could have seen the silver lining in that. And obviously, there's a lot of people that were negatively impacted. And we lost business ourselves, but people more significantly were impacted from a health standpoint. But setting that aside, our business is stronger because of it. And I'm sure other businesses see this too. As an owner, I always felt that I had to be visible, I think, to show that I'm there to support you. Like, I work from home, I work from Starbucks, I work from my office, I work wherever my business brings me because I'm on meeting with clients a lot. I work a lot. I put a lot into my business, but I still felt like I had to be visible to my team. And I do think that's important for team dynamics. COVID taught us a different way to be able to do that. And there's tools and resources we have with, today's communication, like Slack and our Trello and our software programs, that allow us to have a team-oriented environment in a remote setting. And that's allowed us to really, really be able to grow. But I think most importantly, as an owner, COVID has taught me that I don't have to be there to all the time to make sure that the floors are swept or that our customers' expectations are exceeded. I have to just provide the tools to allow my team to do that. And the other thing that I did and learned is you have to be able to have metrics. So I run my business on metrics, so I can see people's performance by looking at a report card basically on a weekly basis. And a lot of that's numbers based, how many appointments you get to, what the revenues were, how many fish were sold, et cetera, right? How many calls were made. I can see reports that tell me the team is doing a great job. And if a report goes in the wrong way, we can jump on a call real quick, have a huddle, and figure out what's going on and get through that. So COVID has really taught a better management style, and also to just inspect what you expect. So if you and I have a conversation, Max, and here's the new protocol and here's what we're going to do, you're smart, you're going to figure it out. You might even write, we call them play cards. So we've put process to our business, and COVID's allowed us to do that, given us some time to be able to do that. When we started having some customers that we couldn't service because of COVID, our team stayed intact, and we had them write play cards, which is our version of an SOP, or standard operating procedure. And our business has grown through COVID because we've put process to it and we can replicate it. And again, some of that's been when we started talking about how we'd separate our team, we documented everything and handed that out. And that's a good example of play cards that were successful. And now we're doing that everywhere in our business, from the way we make phone calls to the way we follow up with customers, and it's streamlining operations. And that was also a result of this past year.
Wow, that's some great insight. So the last thing I'm going to ask you, what is your message, I guess, to anybody starting their own business, going into college? You know, if you could leave the listeners with this one last thing, what would it be? Go
find someone that's already done it and learn from them.
Okay, very cool. Well, it's been just over an hour, and thanks for coming, Kurt. This has been a great conversation. I've definitely learned something, and I hope the listeners have too. So thanks again, and maybe we'll have you on again at some other point in the future.
That would be great, and I learned a lot. Every time I talk to you, I learned something, so thanks for that.
Thank you. Alrighty, guys, so if you want to be on the podcast or if you have any questions, email me at knowledgeispowerri@gmail.com. Just set that up. And also check out my company, Custom 3D, at custom3dllc.com. Thanks, guys. See you in the next one.